Welcome back to the Pick 199 podcast, episode 54. I'm here with Muzzy,
Hey.
Snako,
What's up?
Coxy,
Hey.
and this week we have a big catch-up to do on the EPL because we didn't do it 2 weeks ago. So, without a doubt, let's start with one of the biggest games of 2 weeks ago. We had Liverpool 5-0 over Watford.
This was the start of Mo Salah claiming the number one player in the world.
Fucking hell.
Nice little hat trick here. You think this is bad? Wait till we get to the next game.
Was this
Liverpool
the game?
are in really good form.
Was this the game that he had the assist though too when he kicked it on the outside of the boot?
Yeah, I think it might have been.
Was it
Firmino.
Firmino? Yeah. I was thinking of this week's game when he kicked it when he gave it to Keta. Yeah.
No.
I think this is more of a showing of Firmino and that he should be in the squad. I think definitely over Jota. I think he's just been a class above for Liverpool for a long time. Has been interesting that Jurgen Klopp's decided to keep Jota in for a bit. I think he just wanted to see what he could get out of him. I think he knows what he can get out of Firmino. But obviously it's important having the backup striker.
Do you think Jota's a bit erratic at the minute for that Liverpool system?
I genuinely think he's playing in the wrong position. I don't know what Snako thinks, but I don't think he's a centre forward or a striker.
Where would you like out on the wing? Would you prefer him or
I'd prefer him in the midfield.
Yeah.
He did a job for Wolves in the midfield. I think that's probably his best spot.
There's probably a real opportunity for him to move back into midfield now because it looks like Cater's. I don't know how his injury is from the United game. So there's an opportunity there to put him back in the midfield and then start Mane.
I think the thing you get out of Jota is like his pace, but the thing you get out of Firmino is his finishing and passing ability. Like he can.
He's like selfish. He's so unselfish.
He can play that fake 9 sort of position really well, and especially when you got like Mo Salah just fucking tearing up like he's playing under 8s again.
Yeah. So there's an opportunity to move him back in the midfield. I reckon it's not a bad move to put him back there,
or even start him off the bench. But no, good win for Liverpool, and we'll jump up onto the next game. We had Chelsea getting a 1-0 win over Brentford. Got to be honest, I was shitting bricks a bit here because we didn't look very good at all for the majority of this game. The Brentford had the majority of the ball in the second half too. They were looking really strong, and like I would not be surprised if they do a few more giant kills this year.
Well, they've already done a couple. Like they had a 3-3 draw with Liverpool, and there's been a few games that they've won and won well.
They
and
beat Arsenal straight up off the bat too. Remember? So
the first game, yeah. So they've been a real surprise packet coming up this year. So it's been.
I can't wait for him to play Man United at the minute.
It'll be another 5-0.
Jumping up, we had Leeds losing 1-0 to Southampton. He's
Going on in my end with some tears.
Southampton with the 1-0 win over Leeds. Leeds continuing. I think they're close to relegation at the minute too. Have they won a game yet? Or is it?
No, they have won one.
Yeah.
I think 1 or 2 maybe. But
I think they're only in like 7 points or something. It's like 1 win, 3 draws or something.
Yeah, they are struggling at the moment.
They've been struggling for a little while now, and if you're their manager, I'd be seriously worried about where they're going to end up too.
Yeah.
Battle of the Nufties. We had Brighton 0-0 draw with Norwich. I mean, nothing like a 0-0 draw in a cup with a couple of teams that have been dog shit.
Well, I know it was a 0-0 draw, and I know Brighton haven't been good, but they've won 4 games already this year, and they're currently sitting in the 5th spot. So I did actually think they'd be able to knock over Norwich. So,
considering where they are on the ladder, you would hope so. But
but if Brighton want to be half up the top, then they've got to make sure they take care of these games. So.
Yeah, and Norwich, I think it was a half lifeline for Norwich, but they look like they're just just in the wrong league. They just look like and there's no chance that they're staying within the Premier League.
Yeah.
Championship side.
Hmm.
For the championship, not the Premiership.
Yeah.
Moving on, we had Man City with an easy 2-0 win over Burnley. Just another good win for Man City. Moving on, we had Leicester 4 over Man United 2. Coxy.
Yeah. That game was always going to be tough for us. Leicester are a pretty good side. But it was good to see Rashford out there get his goal. Greenwood scored a cracker, but other than that, there wasn't too much going on. Leicester just I think they just wanted it more. And you could see it when, I think it was Vardy scored the 3rd goal for Leicester.
Yeah.
The centre-backs were sitting right off him, and he was unmarked there on the penalty spot and just slotted it when the ball came across. So you can't win if you're not going to be man-marking tight, especially in the box. It just looks like the defense is in shambles.
When you give space to players,
in shambles. I'm in shambles. So
when you give space to players like Vardy and then even Tielemans goal,
you can't. He's a poacher. Anything in the box, man, he's got it. Like, you can't give him space.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know what those United boys were thinking, but Maguire just looked like he was too slow. I know he's coming back from, whatever injury he had, but he just looked too slow that game against Leicester.
But I think also Varane wasn't playing that game either. And I think when Varane's been out, Harry Maguire's been exposed like there's no tomorrow.
Yeah, Varane sort of covers him well. He's got a lot more movement. And Lindelof isn't as good as Varane, but, Lindelof was in that game. And, I guess you're right, Roscoe, just exposed him big time.
I think it's not all bad news for that. In terms of that first half, United looked really under control and looked to be taking control of the game. It was just unfortunate not to get a couple more goals, I think, in the first half. They really needed to put, I think, one more goal would have disheartened Leicester enough that you probably could have snuck out a draw, at least.
And I think if the boys wanted enough, I think they could have got there. I just think I don't know. I think they're already thinking about that Liverpool game, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think it's also like Man United have these moments, they have lapses in judgment. Like Fred get pulled in and out, and then that exposes the centre backs really early. So look,
let's not talk too much about United just yet, because I plan on doing a lot of talking about them after their last performance.
Well, we'll get to that in a minute, mate. Just hold your excitement in, you stinky bit. Moving on, we had the Wolves getting a 3-2 win over Aston Villa. Good win for the Wolves. A little bit disappointing for Aston Villa too, who can't seem to find the back of the net as often as they would like, I think, for the team that's trying to crack that top 8 sort of position.
Yeah, and it was a very back and forth game. It was a really entertaining game to watch too.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, Wolves look pretty decent and look like they can actually pull together some finishing. They had the new striker playing up front with Jimenez again, and it seemed to work pretty well. So, they seem to be doing pretty well for themselves at the moment, Wolves.
Really disappointing for Aston Villa, but being up 2-0, 80 minutes gone.
Yeah.
And then you concede 3 in the last 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, that hurts, and it's good for Wolves, but it's not great for Aston.
Yeah.
But I think that also speaks to the amount of competition that's in the Prem at the minute. Like, you could be 2-3-0 up and a team can come back and score bang, bang, bang.
10 minutes. Yeah.
It's the level of competition at the minute is probably one of the best it's been in a while. So very good. Moving on, we had the Spurs knuckling out a 3-2 win over Newcastle. When Newcastle they were 2-1 up at one stage. I was like, oh, please let it happen. Please let it happen.
Yeah, 1-0 up, I think they were.
Yeah. Well, they were definitely 1-0 up, and then I thought it might have been 2-1 at one stage. Yeah. But good for Spurs to get that win out. Tough for Newcastle after the announcement of them being taken over by the PIF. But I think this sort of loss almost solidified that departing ways with Steve Bruce too of Newcastle.
Yeah.
I think it's been on the cards for a little while now. I know watching some YouTubers like that are big on the Prem, like they're big in the Premier League space. They can't wait to see the back of the Steve Bruce era. Like he doesn't offer much tactically, and when you think like Rafa Benitez pretty much had that team in the middle of the table last year before he was sacked, like with the same squad.
Yeah.
Like I don't know what to take from that, but
And I think if you look at where Newcastle are obviously aiming to go as an organisation, you can obviously see that he's not going to be the coach that's going to get the job done.
No.
Because they don't want to be even finishing mid-table these days. They're all about winning trophies. So,
well, it's going to be interesting because the owners did say that they want to build a sustained success for that club. They don't want to just go like balls to the wall, like just splashing heaps and heaps of money. Whether or not that happens, though, is yet to be seen. Because, I mean, when they've got, was it £320 million in their financial fair play, in their cap. So
Yeah,
like
that's what they're eligible for and to use before all signings and stuff goes through. Yeah, look, it's going to be very interesting. I think they've got to sort of pick one of two approaches, and I think you got to look at clubs like Manchester City and Chelsea who have done it in recent years. Chelsea went down the route of loaning out players and earning money through that route to make a sustainable system that can bring in talent. City sort of went down the different route where they looked at reinvesting in their youth, and working through their youth through that way. So, and then, but obviously, once both of those systems worked through, both teams just ended up spending the cash that they needed to. So it'll be interesting to see what Newcastle do. If Newcastle do go through that, they're the only really ways of saying sustainable, I think. I don't think there's any other clubs that do it any other way. It's either through your youth or through your loan system, like Chelsea or City do, and same with Liverpool. And sort of what's struggling United at the moment is that they don't have that necessarily that loan system, or that youth hasn't been as produced as much as they want.
Prefer to let them sit on the bench, waste away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, at least, but like the good thing for Newcastle though too is they've got such a big fan base. Like they've probably got one of the biggest fan bases in the whole Prem as well. Like even if you compare it to like Man City and Chelsea at the minute, like the amount of fans that they have, like at each game is like it's always that capacity sort of thing. So
yeah,
they'll always have money coming in through there too. So
they also don't have a lot of really close competing clubs. So like they get sole fan base sort of stuff.
Yeah. They're like established by themselves up north. Yeah. No, very good. We had West Ham getting a 1-0 win over Everton. This is a pretty decent game actually. Like back and forth the whole game. But a good win for West Ham too. So yeah. No comments, boys.
Yeah,
Jumping into the next one. We had Crystal Palace with Arsenal 2-2. This is a pretty entertaining game, even though I think everyone was sort of hoping that this would be the final nail in the coffin for Arteta and Arsenal. Knuckling out a 2-2 draw with Crystal Palace is a pretty decent performance.
Yeah, they got a last minute goal to sort of save them in that game.
The
Crystal
95th
Palace
minute.
Yeah, Crystal Palace looked really good and looked to take control of it. And it just ended up on a silly error from their goalkeeper, Gaeta, as he sort of got rid of the ball. And then he was just chipped at the end. So it happens, but Crystal Palace, they'll learn how to win those games. And I think Vieira's really got them in a good spot to where I think they'll compete for that top 10 spot. And I think if they can keep their players as they progress, keep Vieira, I think they're in a really good spot. And there's a lot of teams in that same position, like West Ham, Brighton seem to be showing glimpses of that this year as well. And Everton, of course, and Wolves. So a lot of teams trying to build up the rest of that 10. So it's going to be very interesting for years to come.
Absolutely. Well, moving on to the start of game week 8, I believe. We had Chelsea with a 7-0 win over Norwich. So for a Chelsea fans' perspective, it was good to see us score them more than 2 goals.
Yeah.
I think that's probably been the biggest criticism of us this year, is that we haven't scored probably as many goals as we should be.
Yeah.
And we had Mason Mount get his first hat trick, I think, too. So it was a really good result for us. It's hard to take too much away from it being Norwich, but 7-0, 7-0. So
Yeah.
I'll take it any day of the week.
We had Timo Werner on the bench again. Do you think that's his spot?
I think for the small foreseeable future, it probably will be, considering that we're playing Havertz up front a lot as well. And when we've got Mason Mount sort of playing really well as well off the back of like him and Lukaku, I don't see how Werner's going to fit in there at the minute.
Yeah.
Unless it's like we have a midweek game for Champions League and we sort of want to rest players.
Yeah. He's another player that I think might benefit from a position change, or at least look into a position change, just because he's not as ruthless as some of the strikers you guys have now, or even some of the players that you have at the moment, wingers as well. I think he might benefit from a position change as well.
I don't think he'll be bad in like a centre mid role. They're playing off like Jorginho and Kovacic or even Kante. He does offer speed off ball too, so he can push forward really quickly if we need him to. So he's sort of interchangeable at the minute. I think he's sort of been exposed by the Premier League though too, like being such a defensive sort of league, like one of the best leagues in the world too. Like when he was scoring goals left, right, and centre for Leipzig, I think.
Yeah.
That was the German league, so there's like 4 or 5 teams that are decent in that, and then the rest aren't great. So
yeah,
I think he's sort of been exposed a bit in this league, which probably in the long run won't be bad for him.
Yeah.
Moving on, we had Arsenal with the 3-1 win over Aston Villa. Arsenal looked pretty good in this game, as much as I hate to say it. Aston Villa have just been a little bit out of touch with the team that they've got. I think not having Grealish there is really starting to hurt them a bit too.
Yeah. It's really starting to, I think, expose some flaws that he was covering up a lot of. And I don't think they're sort of dealing with it in the right way. And it's just, hopefully they can turn it around, because it would suck to see them go down after, spending nearly all the money that they got for Jack Grealish. It'd be very disappointing if they went down at the end of the year.
Do you think they were aggressive enough in the transfer market after they sold off Grealish?
Yeah, like we talked about at the start, I thought that they did well in the transfer market to get what they got. They sort of spread out their money enough. Whether they picked the right players to replace what they needed to, we were a bit iffy about that, and I think it's sort of showing now that they just couldn't get the value that they wanted to. The market was crashed, so like a lot of players that probably weren't worth the money that they got it. So I think that had a big impact, because they sort of had this pressure to spend straight away. There wasn't a lot of good assets out on the market.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But like I said, they missed out on a couple of really good young signings. I think their winger, Leon Bailey, is going to be an absolute superstar. He just needs time. I think they should have picked up Damari Gray. I think he would have been a really, really good signing for them, just to give him that extra bit of pace to go up with Danny Ings. But yeah, look, there was definitely a couple of other pieces that they could have added, but we'll see how they go towards the end of the year. It's still early days. Hopefully they can turn it around.
Absolutely. Moving on, we had Man City with a nice 4-1 win over Brighton. You must be pretty happy with that.
Yeah, it was good. Brighton came in, obviously, good form. They had been for a couple of weeks. I thought we were going to really struggle to break down their defence. Brighton's always known for having awesome defence. We played well. We sort of held possession, held in control. The first half was a bit up and down. Phil Foden had an absolute cracker. He just seems to be getting in better and better form and keeping a lot of higher priced players than himself out on the bench. So obviously Pep's seen some good stuff from him, and yeah, I'm happy with his form, and the team looks to be sort of pulling together again. So
I don't know if you saw Pep was interviewed and he was talking about Phil Foden, and he was saying like every game that he sort of played, he's asking for more time on the field. Like, so it started off as like, happy to go on at like half time, or I'd be happy to go on with like a minute to go, and then give me 20 minutes this week, boss. Give me 30 minutes, and then start me, like, sort of thing. Like, I think once he got that confidence of the run that he had during the Champions League last year is like really sort of
and
ranks.
it's interesting because like he had so much time out, but a lot of the players were talking about how good he is in training, like year and a half ago, when he wasn't getting like any game time, and I think it is a confidence thing, and I think the only thing is because he's so young, worried about, you know, if he makes a couple of mistakes and we drop a few games, that his confidence goes down. I think he needs to stay on top of that, because while his confidence is really high, he plays really, really well. Like, he's one of those players that you need him to be really cocky.
Yeah, exactly.
Because if he's not cocky, then he just sort of distances himself from play and stuff. Or you need him to sort of take control of the game and be, I can be, you know, a superstar in a big club.
Yeah. Is his form keeping Sterling out of the side, you reckon?
No, I don't think so. Sterling wasn't in the squad when Foden wasn't getting any time. I think I think Sterling's he's fallen down the pecking order, and now we've got so many wingers, and they're all showing up, and Jesus is playing awesome. Had another great game out on the wing. Phil Foden's he's playing anywhere at the moment. They've played him in the mids, they played him in the wing. Had a bit of a stint up front as well on the weekend as a false nine. So yeah, look, I don't think so. I think at the moment he's just being outplayed by a whole lot of other good players at the moment. So
yeah. Well, yeah, when you think you put on top of that Grealish, who can play left wing as well, or
Mahrez,
and then you've got Bernardo Silva that's sort of playing that center attacking mid, but also pushing out to the wing as well. So
yeah. So you got like 4 or 5 wingers that are sort of ahead of him at the moment. So
just wait till you sign Neymar, mate. Get another winger in there.
Yeah.
Moving on, we had a 2-2 draw with Southampton and Burnley. Not much to go off on this game. It's pretty evenly matched in terms of positioning and whatnot. Next game, we had Wolves and Leeds with a 1-1 draw. Probably disappointing for Wolves not to play a bit better and get the win, considering how poor Leeds have been this year.
Yeah. I think Wolves played well, but it's back to that inability to score. I think they had that week where they played well, and then it's back to not being able to score. So,
and to lead for 80 minutes of that game and concede a goal in the 94th minute to walk away with the draw.
Yeah.
You need, like, if you want to be half competitive or even sit in the middle of the table in this league, you got to make sure you get those wins.
Exactly. Watford had a 5-2 win over Everton. I'm not sure that anyone saw this result coming in terms of Everton getting smacked at home.
And to concede 4 goals in the space of 12 minutes, I think is one of the craziest things I've ever and to be behind and then go and score 4 goals. I thought this was going to be the talking point out of the whole round, to tell you the truth. I thought Chelsea originally and then this.
Yeah.
Didn't see it coming. Not great news for Everton, but
I think since the plethora of injuries that they've had at the start of the season, they've looked so out of sync. Yeah. Even with those players coming back now, Richarlison, I think he got a goal, but they still looked out of sync. Yeah. So it's worrying signs, I think, if you're an Everton fan for the moment. But I think they will come back together in the near future.
Absolutely.
Lucky there's one good team in the city.
Moving on, we had Newcastle and Crystal Palace knuckling out a 1-1 draw. Probably disappointing for Crystal Palace in terms of the type of form they've been in. But look, I don't know much. I didn't see much of this game, so I
Yeah.
can't comment on it too much. And with that, we move on to the 5-0 drubbing of Liverpool over Manchester United. I did not see this scoreline coming. I would have thought maybe 1-1 or 2-1. Probably 2-1 Liverpool, I would have thought.
Coxy, you haven't spoken in 20 minutes. What do you think of the game first?
Oh, I've just lost the love of the game, boys. Happens when you get absolutely flogged 5-0 at your own, your home ground. I suppose, like the way we've played at Old Trafford, like, losing 1-0 to Aston Villa. And then, we just get defeat after defeat there, like only scraping a draw out at West Ham. Or was it West Ham or Everton? Can't remember now. But yeah, like I wasn't really too confident going into this game. I kind of thought we'd get beat, but yeah, when I woke up and saw that scoreline, I wasn't really expecting a 5-0 clapping. So
No.
yeah,
Well, it was like
just before you start, Snakeo, like Muzzy sort of asked a question about is Ollie the bloke to go forward with the boys, but honestly, after the sort of run we've had and only sort of scraping a win against Atalanta, I don't know. I think honestly we got to look in a different direction. I know they're looking at Conte.
Yeah.
There, and I think he would be a good personality to get in there just to sort of kick. They all need to kick up the arse, really.
Well, especially when Conte is such a defensive-minded coach too. Like, he'd be. Could you imagine he'd be fucking working Harry Maguire that hard?
Yeah,
he'll have a heart attack.
I honestly think Ollie's time's done. I can't see him be there for much longer. And usually I'm always sort of against clubs that are quick to get rid of a manager. But like you think of Frank Lampard at Chelsea, Roscoe, like he wasn't doing that bad, and they got rid of him.
I was just about to say, do you think it's sort of in that same sort of vein though? Like they both have, like Frank Lampard pretty much took Chelsea as far as he could go tactically. I think that might be just about time for Ollie too, like in terms of tactics, because he just hasn't figured out how to fix that, like that central mid role with like Fred and
enough time. Like it's not like he hasn't had enough time either. Ronaldo came in, that was a bit of a band-aid. When Fernandes came in, that was really good, and then he brings in other players that he just sits on the bench and lets them waste away. So I don't know. I think we need a change, to be honest, to shake it up.
What do you think about Lampard stepping into the role
at United?
Yeah.
I don't think he'd be the first choice.
Yeah.
I think if you put him in there, you get the same issue you got with Ollie.
Yeah. I think so too.
Yeah. But with Lampard, he shores up your midfield, because that's what Roscoe was talking about. And that's Chelsea's midfield was rubbish before then. Yeah. Lampard fixed that midfield. I agree that Tuchel took it to the next level, but without Lampard, that midfield was absolutely rubbish. And we're agreeing that the midfield at the moment for United is just not there. So I think
especially when he's interchanging like the other partner for Fred. Yeah. So like it's funny that Fred's not the one being kicked out; it's everyone else around him that sort of top it, like McTominay and like what's his name, Matic.
Oh, Matic, yeah.
And then you still got Donny on the bench, like. Look, I don't know. They're in a shambles at the minute, and like we said before, Maguire's been exposed so many times now too. Now that Varane's not in the centres with him.
Yeah, I think honestly the defense is probably the biggest aspect though, Muzzy. Like I agree with you, the midfield's just shambles too, but I think the defense is in the bigger shambles, to be honest, as opposed to the mid. So I'd be happy with Conte. I'd be happy with anyone honestly over Solskjaer. So,
do you think and with that too, like there's a heap of people blaming like the transfer for Ronaldo being part of that, but I just sort of go, well, he's the only one that's showing effort out there.
Well, he's the one
like
that looks
the forwards like with Greenwood and like Sancho and Lingard, even like they're the only ones sort of showing any sort of push forward. Like Fernandes as well. Sorry.
You can just see it in Ronaldo how much it means to him to be back at Old Trafford, and I think he's sort of realised that it's not the team that he left United as, where he used to play with Scholesy and, Neville and Ferdinand and Vidic and those sorts of players and Rooney. And now he's playing with these other boys. I think it's, I think it needs to be a big sort of shake-up.
Mm.
And then also Pogba coming on as a sub and then getting a red card as well is that's just poor discipline. I think he might need to go as well. I don't think he's in the right space to be at United, which is a shame. He's played some good games, but I just don't think he wants to be there sometimes.
Well, Scholesy was calling for that to be his last ever game in a United jersey.
Well, that, but also I don't think Ollie's figured out where to play him though too. They just haven't figured out where to play.
Yeah, but it's not that he hasn't played well though, Roscoe. Like
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I'm just saying that they haven't figured out the position that they want him to be in. They put him out on the wing, or they put him in centre attacking mid, or they drop him back to centre defensive mid, sort of thing. Well,
they just need to plug that hole because Fred can't do it. He can't plug that hole. When he gets he gets shoved off the ball, and we can see goals from corners. He can't be the one sort of man in that middle.
Yeah, exactly. Like we've said before, he jumps in too hard. Like he doesn't jockey anyone. He gets exposed really quickly too. So they turn him inside out like there's no tomorrow.
Yeah. And other times he just doesn't jump in hard enough and just gets 2 cracks at the pie and gets shoved off. So and then we can see it's just we need a bigger body in there. McTominay, even Van der Beek would be good.
Well, yeah, why have Van der Beek there if you're not going to play him? We said it from day dot. It continues to be a problem for them, and when he literally he didn't. I don't think he got on there. Went back to the sheds. He went straight out to the training pit, straight back out onto Old Trafford, trained by himself for an hour after the game had happened.
Yeah, you feel for him. Ollie brought him in, and Ollie's still there, and he's not getting any game time. You'd expect to see that a coach brings someone in, then they get sacked, new one comes in, and they don't really want that player. But it's the same bloke that brought him in as this guy still coaching. So it's just, I don't get it.
Especially when Fred's getting a start over him. I still don't understand that tactic. What does Fred offer that the other boys don't like?
Yeah, well, I think we know what he offers, but I think most people would be willing to roll the dice with Van der Beek and give him some time to settle in. But anyway, all right, Snake, off to you, mate. Rip in.
Just before we do that, do you think Manchester United sort of sleepwalking into the sacking of Ollie? They just sort of, it'll be that was sort of the final nail on the coffin for me. In terms of if I was a fan of Man U.
Yeah, I think it's coming. I thought he was doing okay, and then sort of when that Aston Villa game did it for me, sort of put a strike against his name, and then just how we struggled in the Champions League a little bit, and just we can't play at home either, and that's meant to be a fortress. You're meant to be winning those games at home. You're not travelling anywhere. So I don't know.
When you think it was 4-0 at half time too, 4-0 at half time. The halftime chat would have been, don't concede a goal. And you conceded one pretty early on. And then it was 5-0. It was 5-0 for 40 minutes. Ronaldo's pretty unlucky to not have his goal awarded though too. That was a weird sort of offside rule there, but
I thought the same thing, but I also think that goal being disallowed also summed up United's attitude. Because that was purely an effort to get back on side. It was just a slow play. Yeah. You know what I mean? It was just someone that wasn't necessarily paying 100% attention.
Yeah.
And was just lazy getting back on side.
Yeah.
And it cost them a goal.
Yeah, absolutely. But
even though there was millimetres in it, it still was an attitude thing for me.
Yeah. Do we apologise to Stako here and now, boys, for putting Liverpool down so low? Or are we yet to see the injuries come back?
We only did it because of the injuries.
Yeah,
that's what we said. We said because of the depth. We never said anything about the 11 or even the bench team. We agreed that the 11 and bench team is one of the best in the Premier League. Yeah. But we just think towards the end of the season, if there's going to be injuries, they're going to be the hardest hit by it.
Yeah.
And to be honest, that's going to get tested in the next couple of weeks because Milner did a hamstring. Yeah. And I don't know what Cater's injury status is.
I had a quick look. It looks they still don't know, but they're not optimistic at this stage.
Yeah, they said it normally takes a couple of days for it to come up. But
when you think about it, Milner's at least 70. isn't he?
Yeah, I think he's like, yeah. They did say it the other day in commentary, and I was shocked as shit that a bloke that age could still run. But yeah, so that'll test that midfield. And,
Yeah.
That's why, like what we are talking about earlier, with maybe Jota going back in the midfield is an actual chance of happening. Because, I do like that idea just to strengthen up the midfield. But
I think one of the big things for you guys though too is having Trent Alexander-Arnold back though too. Like when we saw Milner in that right back position, he got exposed so hard by Phil Foden.
Yeah, he did.
And, like he just didn't look like he could be like unless he's playing in a central mid role, like he should be playing it back. But
and the other really good thing for Liverpool coming out of this game was Curtis Jones being back after he got injured in the England under-21s game.
Yeah.
Well, he nearly had his legs taken, like broken
so
again by Pogba. So
for him
you
to,
know, like,
come back and have a good run, and he looked really good out there.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's good for our midfield too. So
do you think Ronaldo's lashing out at Curtis Jones too is just like frustration with that team that he's playing with at the minute?
Yeah, absolutely.
1,000%.
Like,
And it was
I sort of wanted, you know how like players just like niggle other players to sort of get a reaction out of their own team to sort of inspire them.
Yeah.
That's sort of what it felt like. He wanted some sort of passion out of them, but he's getting nothing from that team. Like,
Yeah, and the way Ronnie's come in, he hasn't come in trying to take the whole team over either. Like he hasn't come in saying, "This is my team. I'm taking the penalties. I'm taking all the free kicks. Everything's running through me." He's come in knowing they've already got things established and trying just to add to that his experience. And like he's been a leader as well. But I think like it's like they're all waiting for him just to step up and tell them what to do. It's crazy.
I got a question.
By letting him be the captain coach.
Yeah.
Oh, we may as well get him to be the coach. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Get him, sign him up, and then put himself to go on and whatnot.
just captain coach of the Premier League.
Yeah.
I do have a question for you boys though regarding Ronaldo. Do we think that he regrets leaving Real Madrid? Like not even necessarily Juventus, but leaving Real Madrid for Juventus? Because I feel like when he went to Juventus, it wasn't the situation he thought it was going to be. And
Yeah,
then it was the same thing with United, where he thought for both of those clubs, he's going to clubs that are passionate, and he thought he'd get passionate players playing with him. But it sort of felt like he went from a team where Real Madrid were willing to give him everything and willing to make him always the number one man, to then Juventus, where it sort of felt like it was easy to blame him.
Yeah.
I think in a way, yeah. Like you think how comfortable he was at Real Madrid too. Like, and when you go to it like a giant like Juventus, you sort of expect the same sort of mentality there too. And there was frustrations with him and Dybala early on too. Like, and that sort of continued all the way through his time there.
Yeah.
I think potentially he thought he was going to those clubs 10 years ago. The club that they were 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Bit like what you were saying before, Coxy, about the blokes that were there like when he left. It's a completely different culture now. Like
the other thing though too is though, like when he went to Juventus was on like a seven-year win streak for the Serie A, weren't they? Like
and then they lost it that year.
Yeah, the year that he went there.
Yeah.
So
is there a thing but to it, like if you've got to give up so much to get him, that it then makes it really hard to be successful because you don't have the ability to give him.
Well, it was interesting in Juventus's case because they really didn't have to give up much for him.
Yeah.
They ended up offloading a couple of contracts, but in return, they actually got some really good players. So I think in terms of that, they didn't have to give up much. And for United, it was basically just another signing. I don't think United had to give up nearly anything for him.
No.
So I think old time Ronaldo, like when he was younger, when he moved from United to Real Madrid, I know Real Madrid suffered from that for the next 2 years while he was still wearing the number 9 jersey. They suffered through that whole time because they had to give up. But he was worth so much back then. And I think because he's depreciated in value because of his age, I don't think he'd give up that much at the moment.
The amount that he's giving out at the minute, though, too, like what was it, 20 mil that they spent on him this year for that signing from Juventus.
Hmm.
Like, for a world-class player like that, that's sort of like chump change, really, for a club like United. So, and the fact that, I don't know, I don't know if Ollie's utilising, like, he's playing well up front. Like, he's always getting, like, close call, like, shots on target sort of thing, so, and creating chances. So, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it's all. Do you reckon it's almost like Ollie's just going, you do you sort of thing, and like we won't have a structure around that? Like that's how it feels. Like
Oh no, man. But
I think
like,
they've got a midfield that's too lazy to get back and help.
I just think Ollie doesn't really like, as you said, Roscoe, tactically, like our Lampard was like that. I just don't think Ollie's, he's drawn up the right plays, or he's given out the right sort of having the right plays in those positions. But I think, I don't know. He just needs to go.
I think it's part of that thing though, like Fred gets exposed, and then I think Wan-Bissaka's been pretty poor for you guys too this year in terms of his defense on that right edge. So, I mean, there's a lot going wrong there that they need to fix. And
I think Wan-Bissaka's a lesser problem than some of the other boys out there.
Oh yeah, for sure. You put Wan-Bissaka in there before you put Fred in.
Yeah.
To be fair, but on the flip side of that, I think Liverpool this is probably one of their better games of the year. I still don't think they've reached their full potential though, too, like in terms of how well they can go.
Yeah.
Like there's still a couple of moments in there where Manchester United looked pretty good. But
there were a few opportunities, especially early, that United had, and they just couldn't grab it.
Off, yeah.
But yeah, you've got a lot of players come back into that starting team, so that wasn't full strength. Obviously Mane come on late purely because of the minutes he's been doing with the Champions League as well.
Mm.
But and you're gonna leave Salah out there whenever he's scoring hat tricks every week. So every time what's that, 10 consecutive games he scored in now. So
this is probably the best I've seen. Like this is probably the best I've seen Mo Salah look like in terms of individual performance for that
easily
team.
The best form he's ever been in.
Yeah.
Oh, there's not just one or two people now saying he's the best player in the world at the moment.
Yeah.
There's a lot of voices. But yeah, he had 3 goals and an assist. He easily could have scored that first goal. So yeah, the selfishness, like it's not like he's going out there just looking after himself.
Yeah.
The team's just sort of flowing at the minute. Sort of next man in comes in and does the job of the person that was there before. So,
but like even
criticize our depth, but
yeah,
you can't knock anyone that's come up and done a job. They've really done a job. So, you're only as good as your last performance, and we've had a couple of 5-0 victories. So,
well, I think for Liverpool though too is they've done well having those harder games up front though too. Like that's sort of been that crucible for them to sort of become like like where they are at the minute in terms of form. Like they're just in insane form. Like there's not much you can say except that they've been impressive.
Not only like have they been able to win these big games in the Premier League, but they also went undefeated to the group stage in the Champions League, like winning some really big games. So they played 3 games in a week and come up with some really good victories all in that time. So, they're flying as a team. It's not just getting up for a big performance, if that makes sense. Like, it's easy to get up for one game, but they're doing it consistently. So, it's pleasing because we know we're going to drop off after Christmas because we have every other year for the last 5 years. So we need to have a good steady lead.
And have all the goal difference you can. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I have to give a shout out to Jordan Henderson for that assist though too. Like the outside of the boot again, going through like 3 defenders, like nuts.
It's insane.
Like you can't say there wasn't much better than that. But good win for Liverpool. Absolute shambles for Man U. It's going to be interesting to see what they do in the next week.
5-0. Oh,
absolute stinky.
So happy.
But this next result is nearly just as good, just on a different scale. We had West Ham 1-0 over Tottenham Hotspurs. Oh, is there anything better than apart from seeing Arsenal lose? Spurs is up there too.
Yeah, they're
Um,
the two teams.
interesting. A lot of people are asking, do we think that Ollie will go first, or do we think Nuno, the current Spurs coach, will go first?
I'm going Ollie.
I think
Yeah,
I think that result, if that result had been like 2-1 against Liverpool, I think Liverpool would have been a bit safer. But that 5-0 drubbing, I think tells more than like a 2-1 loss would,
Yeah.
or like a
All
1-0
those
loss
boys,
that Spurs had.
all those people that were starting to sing are all of a sudden jumping up and down on the table. So for Ollie, so yeah, he's in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
I think both managers are definitely in a lot of
Oh
trouble.
yeah,
I think Spurs manager, because the Spurs expect so much, but not willing to spend any. It's a really it's a tough gig. I don't know who wants to go there, and I don't know if I was Wolves manager like Dino was, and then to leave to go to Spurs, I don't know if I would do that. You go from a club that is willing to spend and doesn't expect the world of you to a club that's not willing to spend and expects the world of you. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's
A bit of a interesting situation.
But do you think that's sort of like Spurs sort of sleepwalking in those positions though too? Like because they know, I don't know, like they've got a team that can win, but like they just sort of seem to be sleepwalking through these results where they're losing like 1-0 or whatever,
Yeah, it's
and like not offering anything up
it's
front.
the little things that the other big clubs can do. So little things where the other big clubs will punch in a couple of players just to shore up like those 1% sort of tackles, 1% attacks. Like it's little differences that really creep in, and it's why Spurs are really really easy to get losses against low end teams.
I really think Spurs need a decent centre back too. Like Dyer just keeps getting exposed. Like he's not the player that he was like 5-6 years ago. And even then, like he was playing like centre defensive mid for the majority of that too. So
yeah.
I think they need to sort of think about shifting him on and getting someone decent in there because they keep getting exposed every week. So
Another good result for West Ham though.
yeah,
Really starting to turn on the form now. So it is good to see the Gunners continue.
hopefully they can hit up that fourth spot that we had them predicted for. You know?
Well, that's where they're at the minute, isn't it? So
I think they might be a little bit low. We'll have a look at the table in a minute. Next game, final game before the end of the round, we had Leicester 2-1 over Brentford. Good win for Leicester in terms of how good Brentford have sort of been showing up. It's probably a game that they should be expected to win though too. And that's no offense to Brentford. They've been playing out of their skin. So
good to see Leicester finally hitting some form back. A lot of their big guns starting to play well again. Tielemans playing well. Vardy obviously playing well. Yeah, so really starting to get it going. So that's good.
Very good. We'll have a quick look at the table. If we can, Chelsea up on top. One points difference between them and Liverpool. Man City third, West Ham fourth, Brighton fifth, Tottenham sixth, Man U seventh. How do we think anyone's going to move up there quickly?
I don't know. Tottenham might get the odd win.
I think Leicester might jump up.
Yeah, I think Leicester will probably overtake Tottenham. I think Tottenham will probably continue to slip. 5 wins, but I don't know if they deserved all 5 of those. And I think the cracks will show even more for Tottenham. Brighton, I think will try and hold on as much as they can, but I think they'll slip down as well. It'll be hard for them to continue on that form, and that you're looking at Wolves, Leicester, Everton, and I think United and Brentford, like all those teams can move up quite easily, just based on their form. So I think if you're any of those teams sitting up top, you're a little bit scared, you're a little bit afraid from that sort of 6, 7, and 9, 6, 7, 5, 4 spot. You're sort of worried at this stage that you can be caught pretty easily.
You happy saying there's only 3 teams that can win it this early on?
What was that, Snaker?
You're happy to say there's only 3 teams that can win it this early on?
3.
So I believe there's only 3.
Let's talk after Christmas Day, Snako. 3 games after Christmas.
I'm happy to say now that one of those 3 teams will win it.
It's tough because like we talk about how poor like United is, but they're only 8 points out. It's 2 wins and 2 draws. It's not a massive gap, especially with only 9 games played. Same with Leicester, same with Everton. All those teams, they're all on 14 points. They're only 8 points out. It's really hard at the start of the season because so much can change. I mean, one player can make a massive difference. So
I think for me, there's squads that can compete with those teams, but I don't know if there's squads and manager combinations that can compete with those teams.
Yeah.
To beat all 3 of them.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? I think you've got championship quality managers and you've got championship squads in all of them. So they've won trophies recently. I think it's going to be really hard because for United, for example, for them to turn around and go on to beat those teams, they've got to change so much, like even personnel wise, let alone just an attitude. So I feel confident in saying that, but I also understand what you're saying, Muzz, about being really early.
Well, yeah, especially when you think there's still 29 games to play. Like, we're only like a third, not even a third of it. We're only a quarter of the way through the season, so there's a long way to go.
But I can already tell you that Chooks are going to win next year's comp. So, that hasn't even started.
Well, that's a completely different sport. We're not talking about NRL here, mate. But if that's where we're going, we might end the pod there. I think that's just wrapped up episode 54 this week. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch up with you guys next time.
Yeah.
So,